The usual advice people give you when it comes to sight reading is scan the music. Look at the time signature, the key signature, look for anything unusual in the music. And this is good advice. I give this advice too. But what about during sight reading? What are things you should be doing while you are sight reading? What can help you sight reading more fluently? Well, that is the topic of this video. And stay tuned until the end of the video where I share with you my favorite exercise to help you sight read more fluently. Welcome back to my channel. I'm Manu from Piano Sight Reading, where I give sight reading tips to piano players. You may already have heard the advice to scan the music before you play, and you may already be doing this. But while you are still sight reading, you may still encounter problems because you have difficulty reading ahead. So even though you've prepared before you sight read, you are still struggling through the piece, and that can be frustrating. I understand, having to process so many notes and stay in tempo, and with the piano we have to read 2 lines of music all at the same time. It's hard. What you may not have realized yet is that good sight readers have this one ability that can really help you take your sight reading to the next level. And this ability is the ability to predict or guess what is about to come next in the music. Good sight readers instinctively know what is about to come up next, and 90% of the time they get it right. I see this often when I'm sight reading. I will be sight reading along, and then all of a sudden I will see this really low note or really high note. And at that moment, I can't recognize the note because it's simply too high or too low with too many ledger lines. Now, I could have just stopped, figure out the notes, play it and then continue, or I could have figured out that note before sight reading and then hoping that I will remember what the note was. But having sight read for many years now, I can usually predict or guess what these really low or really high notes are. And to demonstrate, let me show you an example. I was sight reading this piece by Poulenc called Badinage, and in the second page there are quite a few low notes in the left hand. Now, I wouldn't have been able to tell immediately what those notes were, but because I knew what the key was in that bar, I could predict what that low note was. For example, this bar here. Now I could have just gone, okay, what is that? Or I could just think, okay, that's probably E flat, because I'm in the key of E flat. And I happened to be right in that moment. And these things happen a lot at the end of phrases or at the end of a piece. You often have low notes or high notes. And if you know the tonic of the piece, so if you know what the key signature of the piece is, you can usually tell what that note will be. To be able to predict or guess the music like this, you have to have a really good understanding of music theory. You have to be familiar with key signatures, with common chords, with common cadences, and common patterns. And the more familiar you are with music theory, then the more easily you can predict or guess what's about to come. And so this saves you a bit of time in processing the notes. If you're able to guess what is about to come, you can save time and read more fluently. And to get to this stage where you can predict or guess the music, one way is to expose yourself to loads of music, to sight read lots of different types of music and really become familiar with all the different patterns that you see. Another way is to actually study music theory or to practice scales, arpeggios, chords, etc., and to really understand how they are formed, because there's not much point practicing these things if you don't understand them, right? So when you're practicing your scales, arpeggios, and so on, make it your goal to understand how they are formed, because once you have this knowledge, then you can apply it to your pieces. You'll be able to recognize the scales, the chords, etc. in the pieces, and you'll be able to automatically play them. You won't have to think so much. And to help you get more familiar with scales, chords, etc., I've made a series of exercises that you can play in all keys. And in this video, I'm going to share with you my favorite one. This exercise is called the Circle of Fifths exercise. Now, if you don't know what the Circle of Fifths is, have a look at this article where I explain what it's about. But in a nutshell, it's a tool that you can use to quickly remember your key signatures and know how many flats or sharps you have, etc. So I've used this concept to create this exercise. So the idea is you start on C major and you play this pattern in the right hand. And in the left hand you have two types of chords. You have the first chord of the scale, which is chord 1, and you have the fifth chord of the scale, which is your dominant. And usually when you see a dominant chord is with the 7th note. We call that a 5-7 chord. So it would be the chord 1 and the 5-7. So together it sounds like this. Okay, and then it goes to the next key in the Circle of Fifths. So here we are in major keys with sharps. So you start with C major, and then the next key is your G major. So, and then it just keeps going like that. So it goes through all of the keys with sharps, all the major keys with sharps, and then you can also do this exercise with major keys with flats. And this exercise helps you with knowing your key signatures. It helps you with knowing the common chords, the chord 1 and the 5-7. And it's pretty simple to do. It's very short and you just transpose it to the different keys. So if you'd like to get the sheet music for this exercise and for 3 other useful exercises, you can just click on the link in the description. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, then please like it and share it with your fellow musicians. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Happy sight reading!